Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. And we're going to cover the top 10 value running backs that I think, and value doesn't have to just mean that they're going super deep or not drafted at all. Some of them are that I'm going to cover, and they should be drafted. They should be on your roster. They should be tucked away, or they should be ready to play right away. And people are just taking them a round or two late, right? You know these players' names, some of them. And yes, right now when you're watching this on, and the exact date, let me get you since it's like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. It is Thursday, August 22nd right now. So things can change, but if you're drafting today, tomorrow, even whenever you're watching this, you're probably going to have a leg up on some of the people that you're drafting with because, one, they're going to stick to their old ways. They're not going to kind of identify what's happening. The biggest thing, the preseason. If you're somebody who says, or you know somebody who says preseason doesn't matter, you're just a donkey. Just turn off this video because you're just a donkey if you don't think that the preseason for these rookie running backs who are taking over and leaping veterans in the rotation on depth charts right now, if you don't think that that matters, or running backs who we know, and I'm about to say the first one's name, we know are getting new roles this year in terms of getting more work in the passing game, which for PPR matters so much more. And even if you're not playing PPR, just more overall touches matters so much more for fantasy. So preseason does matter. It has affected a lot of the ADP. If you are somebody who has been paying attention and you draft early, that is great. I don't personally like drafting early just due to injuries, but if you draft early, you have so much more knowledge if you are paying attention than other people. So hopefully this video helps you. My name is Sal. I do cover fantasy, mainly in daily fantasy, DraftKings, FanDuel, Fantasy Draft, all of those areas, but season long as well. So if you get any value from this video, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button to try and push up the rankings, see if we can get a video to get some more reach here. Been doing this full time now for about a month or so, and it's been a ton of fun. So NFL's finally here. Appreciate it. I cover all sports in terms of fantasy. So if you're interested in other sports, I'm covering baseball, WNBA right now, golf to a little bit of an extent, not as much. So yeah, what you're seeing on the screen ahead of me is just week one's matchups. You can screenshot it if you want. I don't care for your fantasy reasons. It'll show you from last year's data because we don't have any data for this year what was happening. But let's get into my first guy, and we're just going to use the fantasy football calculator. Great tool. You can go on Google right now, fantasy football calculator. Good people over there. And the first person I want to talk about, who I think right now you might have lost the window on him, but I think it's still a little bit open, not only overall, but like in your specific draft. So what we're looking at is on average for Chris Carson, a guy who in the beginning to mid-August you were getting in the 5th round, late 4th round of fantasy drafts. Now he's getting chosen in the late 3rd round, early 4th rounds of fantasy drafts as of yesterday. And this is just a tool from Fantasy Football Calculator that is totally free. You can download it out. You can print some of their spreadsheets. They have a lot of tools over there. So definitely check out Fantasy Football Calculator. I'll link it up down below. But yeah, I think still in the late 3rd, and even in your specific draft, this is just an average, right? If he's going in the 4th round, in your specific draft, you can potentially still get him in the mid to late 4th. He's a steal. Look, they already came out and said that Chris Carson is going to take over that Mike Davis role. Mike Davis now at Chicago in the Bears. He's going to take over a pass catching role. That's great for a guy who had no real pass-catching work last year because Mike Davis did. Rashad Penny has looked terrible in camp. They have now said that the gap between, as of literally yesterday, the gap between Rashad Penny and Chris Carson has widened a ton. Chris Carson is going to be the 3-down back with more pass-catching upside. And very sneakily, the Seattle team threw the running back 25% of the time last year. Russell Wilson was very efficient in terms of throwing deep down the field, and that caught a lot of people's attention. But Chris Carson is a guy who's now going to fill into a role where there's increased snaps overall for him on 3rd down. He's going to be the pass catching back in an offense that threw to the running backs 1 out of every 4 passes last year. If Russell Wilson's throwing 25 times a game, there's going to be on average 6 to 7 passes going out to that running back position, and Chris Carson's going to be there for the far majority of it. So Carson will be the first guy that I talk about in terms of my 10 value running backs. Look, I don't care if he's there I don't care if you reach for him in the middle of the 3rd round. He's going to be one of a very handful of guys who will be a 3-down back with goal line work in an offense that will primarily focus on running the ball, and they're also going to throw to him, and he'll be the 3-down back. So yeah, Chris Carson, if you drafted in mid-August and you got him, you are swimming in it right now as long as he avoids injury in week 3 of the preseason. You're swimming in it because you got him in potentially the 5th round when now you might have to reach for him in the 3rd round. I think it's fine. I think reaching for him in the mid to late 3rd round is still fine. I think he's probably one of the best values overall in fantasy right now. The second guy I want to talk about, maybe you haven't heard of him. You haven't been watching the preseason. You definitely haven't. Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson is on the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody's all gung-ho about Damian Williams. I'm not. I started the year being very gung-ho about Damian Williams, but now, and we'll switch to Darwin Thompson's graph here. Now I'm not nearly as interested because, and let's do this real quickly, Darwin Thompson came in. If you see some videos in the preseason, he has played very well, and he's played well against like the 1s and the 2s from some defenses because he's gotten into the game in the 1st quarter or the 2nd quarter for the Chiefs throughout their first 2 preseason games. Darwin Thompson was free. He was not getting drafted as of late July, beginning of August, even mid-August, as of when I'm shooting this, a week and a half ago, he was free. Now you have to draft him in the 12th round. I'm fine doing that. So here's the news on Darwin Thompson. He's a speed back. He catches the ball. Very similar comparisons to some other running backs coming out of college. Saquon Barkley comparisons. It's crazy that Saquon's a 2-year pro now, and already people are comparing him to him as a pro because he was just so good year one. But Darwin Thompson in the Chiefs backfield started as like the 3rd or 4th guy in the depth chart to open camp, quickly passed Darrell Williams, and now he just jumped over Carlos Hyde. Darwin Thompson has been splitting the first team reps with Damian Williams. So if you're a Damian Williams owner or somebody who had a lot of upside in him, I'd kind of beware right now. Splitting the first team reps with Damian Williams and getting most of, yes, the words were most of to majority of the goal line work. So you have Darwin Thompson, who is now the RB2 for the Chiefs. We know how good that offense is. He's splitting the reps with Damian Williams, and people are still taking him in the 13th round. Are you kidding me? If you're drafting today or tomorrow and Darwin Thompson is not even drafted in your league, go and get him, drop whoever else you have to, because this guy, there's a good upside, whether a Damian Williams injury or just in general, they like Darwin Thompson more. He seems like the guy long-term, at least for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, that they would rather invest in. Young guy out of college, running backs really don't matter, right? He seems like the guy who I want a lot of. He's going to be going late to not even drafted in most leagues. And Darwin Thompson right now is the running back 2, as of yesterday, past Carlos Hyde, the running back 2 on the depth chart for the Chiefs. It's just crazy. My third guy is David Montgomery. Let's go to David Montgomery now. Look, we'll go to David Montgomery. So Montgomery is already going to be picked. You probably already have heard of Montgomery. He was great overall, and here we go. So David Montgomery, you've already definitely heard of him, and now if you drafted in early August, you were getting Montgomery in the 4th round. As of 2 days ago, news has broke that is going to make Montgomery much more attractive. He's being taken in the end of the 3rd round. He's going to probably be the main 1 and 2 first and second down back on this team. Now Mike Davis is out there, Tariq Cohen is out there, so that was worrisome kind of as of 3 days ago. But they came out yesterday and Nagy said that Tariq Cohen is going to have much less work this year. He said he should not have used him that much last year in the passing game and the running game. And what that says is ding, 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 ding. David Montgomery is going to have the opportunity to have a lot of to kind of push for a 3-down back roll, and then in a change of pace, Tariq Cohen comes in for a couple of opportunities a game. But David Montgomery now seems like he is the guy, and in the preseason, if you've watched this guy, he's looked nasty. Week 1, just an absolute cutback, had 41 of 47 yards on the Bears' second drive of the game, I believe, and he scored a touchdown with just a disgusting cutback. He can pass protect, which is something that Tariq Cohen, for his size, is okay at, but overall, Montgomery is probably already better at pass protection. So late 3rd round, yeah, if I came around on the swing in the regular season and I already had my number 1 wide receiver running back and I was getting a back-to-back 2 quick picks and Montgomery was there for one of them, I'd make sure to take him on that front load pick, because this is a guy who, yes, earlier in the year when he was getting drafted in the mid-3rd to the early 4th round, I was like, I'm a little skeptical with Cohen being out there. Now they're going to run back Cohen's work, mainly because they have David Montgomery. Mike Davis, I'm not factoring in too much out there. Yeah, give me David Montgomery in the late 3rd and potentially even the 4th round if he dips there, just because people don't know his name. This guy was a monster in college. He's going to be potentially a monster in a Bears offense that has been very favorable to running backs. You think last year, obviously, Tariq Cohen, Jordan Howard also did well last year on the goal line, and Montgomery's going to be a goal line back. You think Matt Forte when you think back a little bit more. Yes, I want David Montgomery. He's my 3rd guy. 4th is going to be James White. So I'm kind of leaning wishy-washy on James White as either a value. He's the one guy on this list that I don't know if he's a value or if he's actually not going to be a value, because of a guy named Josh Gordon coming back, being reinstated, and because of a guy being... So you get Josh Gordon being reinstated, and then you get Jacoby Myers just balling out. So for the first time in a while, the Patriots actually have a good amount of wide receivers. You have Julian Edelman, you have Gordon obviously being reinstated, you have Jacoby Myers playing very well. They're going to have 4 to 5. They usually take like 4 main wide receivers. They might take 6 this year just due to all the depth that they have and due to how well everybody's playing. So that's worrisome for a guy in James White who's a pass-catching back. And now you throw into the equation that, yes, Sony Michel has been getting more passing work in practices, and Damian Harris in the preseason has looked good. Burkhead's still in that backfield coming back from injury. So there's a little bit of worry, and you kind of saw that dip, right? So you see he was being drafted in the 4th round because he was a value here, late 4th round. Back on the first week of August. Then the Josh Gordon news breaks a couple days ago, and he starts dropping. I think he's dropped too much. Like, if you're getting James White in the mid-5th round for a guy who's been so consistent in the passing game, they're still going to rely on him. Not Sony Michel, yeah, they can give him all the goal line work, but, I mean, 3rd downs and even just in terms of sprinkling in some drives, we know this Patriots backfield. My biggest worry is that Sony Michel is becoming a pass-catching guy. I'm not too worried about Michel getting his 20 touches on the ground. The fact that he's actually been a pass-catching guy is worrisome, but you're getting a guy who's had stability in the receiving game for years, even with other pass catching backs like Rex Burkhead out there, and even rushing backs out there like a LeGarrette Blount. So I'm fine getting to James White. I didn't like him. I thought, and this is where I thought he might have been a little bit overvalued at 4.1. And then obviously when that Josh Gordon news broke and Jacoby Myers keeps balling out in the preseason, just had 6 catches for 82 yards and no touchdowns after week 1 having 2 touchdowns on 6 catches. And now he drops too far. If he's going to be getting drafted in potentially the mid-5th round, James White is going to be a value there. If he's going to be drafted in the 4th round, I don't think he's a value just due to the fact that there's so many heads now to feed out there, just like that pretty much with Jacoby Myers and Josh Gordon being reinstated. If you don't know who Jacoby Myers is, check him out because he's been balling out. Next guy is going to be Tony Pollard. So Tony Pollard of the Cowboys, this should be a name that you know right now. Look, Zeke has been threatening. Melvin Gordon is already going to hold out into the season, and we'll talk about a guy who's a value because of that. But Zeke has also been threatening. Tony Pollard was free as of a week ago. He was getting drafted in the 14th, mid-13th round as of 4 days ago. As of yesterday, he was getting drafted on average in the 12th round. 12th round is still fine with me. Look, this is the James Conner potentially of last year, and you have that same situation in Los Angeles with the Chargers, but the Chargers have a couple of backs in Justin Jackson and Austin Ekeler that can carry the load. Jerry Jones has already come out and said Tony Pollard will be the guy carrying the load. They reflected that in all of their preseason games. Tony Pollard looked really good in the last preseason game, and he got all of the work, all the first team snaps. Jerry Jones said we have full confidence that he can carry the entire load behind an offensive line that is not as good as it was 2 to 3 years ago, but it's still pretty solid, well above average. So yes, Tony Pollard, if Zeke misses 3 weeks even because he's holding out, is going to be a top 5 running back potentially with his skill set. The only reason he is not being hyped up even more is because he started behind Darrell Henderson in college. Darrell Henderson Jr. on the Rams right now, backing up Todd Gurley, 3rd round pick. That's the only reason he's not being hyped up more. Evan Silva kind of had this comparison, and it makes a lot of sense. Evan Silva said on the Established Run podcast, you can check that out, that it's very similar to Alvin Kamara. Maybe not just in terms of skill set, although there's some similarities there, but because Alvin Kamara was a backup in college and just didn't get to fully shine, played some special teams. Tony Pollard took like 7 or 8 kicks back to the house, is what Evan Silva was saying, in college, and he's just started behind Darrell Henderson Jr., who was just getting more buzz. But Pollard is a really good back. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball. He obviously, and when I say catch the ball, he can catch the ball. There's been videos coming out of Cowboys camp of him just catching wheel routes, going right up the gut on a seam route. The guy looks absolutely fantastic. I kind of hope Zeke doesn't play this year. Let him sit out the whole year because you're going to get potentially a top 5 back if you're drafting this weekend with your 12th round pick. That's just ridiculous. Now, I imagine as time goes on and Zeke continues to potentially, and if news comes out that Zeke is not going to suit up week 1, and I hope it doesn't happen until after my draft, you're probably going to have to start taking Tony Pollard in the 10th round. But again, it's very similar to James Conner last year. You were taking him late in the drafts. You were getting him for free on the waiver wire. Make sure that you have your eyes on Tony Pollard. 6th guy that I'm going to have interest in is going to be, we're going to highlight Matt Breda. So Matt Breda right now. So you have Jerick McKinnon. So this 49ers backfield was a little bit loaded, right? You had Jerick McKinnon. You have Tevin Coleman come over. Jerick McKinnon coming back from his ACL. But right now, Jerick McKinnon has had setbacks with his ACL. They don't think he's going to be ready for week 1. They don't know really fully confidently when he'll be ready. This does not seem good. Tevin Coleman's probably going to be the guy who gets most of the work out there. But now you have Matt Breda in the preseason, who has always looked good. He was an elite guy rushing to the outside last year, over 5 yards per carry. 5 yards per carry is a terrible stat, but we'll just use that. But he was elite, even in terms of just overall success rate to the outside when they used him properly. Now he's always dealt with injuries. You have Tevin Coleman, who's also dealt with some injuries in his career. But what I like to see in the Week 2 preseason game, Matt Breda was getting 40% of the first team snaps. So this appeared like it was going to be, at least so far in our small sample of the preseason, a backload split here. And Matt Breda, passing game upside, so is Tevin Coleman, of course. But Matt Breda right now, as you can see, as of a week ago, was not getting drafted or drafted in the 13th round. Now with the Jerick McKinnon injury, now that he's getting some buzz from getting just half of the workload or so in the second week of the preseason, he's getting higher and higher on this list. You can see here he's getting drafted now in the mid-10th to the 11th round. In your drafts, maybe your guys are not as sharp as the overall public and keeping an eye on this. And if you're drafting today or tomorrow, he's not picked up. You should be picking up Matt Breda because McKinnon, who's been dealing with an injury, has had multiple setbacks already. Does not seem like he'll be ready for week 1. And then it's just Matt Breda in the backfield that's going to run the ball a lot with Tevin Coleman. And even if it is sort of a 60-40 split, that still gives Matt Breda 12 touches in the game and passing game upside, which is pretty good for a guy who's going to be rostered deep on your depth chart. So keep an eye on Breda with upside. Another guy that you might not have heard much about, let me just find Matt Breda here. Another guy you might not have heard much about is going to be, we spelled Breda wrong. It's going to be Devin Singletary. So let me find Devin Singletary and we'll pull him up. He's the rookie for, here we go. He's a rookie for Buffalo. This is going to be a guy that you want on your roster. Very similar to a Darwin Thompson in terms of where he sits. Darwin Thompson kind of came in, took over the number 3 job pretty quickly over Darrell Williams. And then he took over 2 days ago or a day ago, the number 2 job over Carlos Hyde. And now you're going to get Devin Singletary in the same exact situation. You have LaShawn McCoy, sort of the de facto number 1 in Buffalo. Then you have Frank Gore, the number 2. And Devin Singletary is already the RB3 on this team, pushing Frank Gore, and he shouldn't have to push that hard, the ageless wonder in Frank Gore, but pushing Frank Gore for the RB2 job, and I think he's going to get it relatively soon. And I would be very surprised if by the halfway point of this year, Devin Singletary is not the starting running back on the Bills. Look, we know LaShawn McCoy, he doesn't want to be there for one. He has no interest in really being there at all. Devin Singletary was free in drafts as of 2 weeks ago. As of yesterday, Devin Singletary was getting still drafted in the 10th to 11th rounds. He's a guy who I want on my depth chart if you already can't get Darwin Thompson. I much prefer having Darwin Thompson. Obviously, David Montgomery, he's already the starter out there. But in terms of these backup guys, get me Darwin Thompson, get me Tony Pollard, but then get me Devin Singletary because he seems like the guy who, even over him and Matt Breda, I think I like Singletary a little more. This isn't rankings. I'm just listing 10, so it doesn't really matter that Breda was listed 6th. But Singletary currently being drafted around the RB 45 to 50 range for a guy who I think even by a quarter of the way into the season, McCoy had one of his worst, if not his worst year last year, and he just looked terrible. I don't know if he's aging and the cold weather in Buffalo doesn't help with that in terms of recovery after the games, but Singletary has already looked good in the preseason. They've given him double-digit opportunities in each of those games, and they've already hyped up his skill set and saying that he's going to be a part of this offense where they don't have much talent on that offense right now. LaShawn McCoy getting older, still a talented back overall when you look at his career, but when you look at him right now in a vacuum for this year, Singletary has much more talent and much more upside. He's a guy who's probably not going to be known as much. A rookie, I believe. I don't know if he was taken in the 3rd round. I can't really recall right now. But yes, Devin Singletary should be on your radars as a guy who you should be drafting ahead of just so many other guys. Don't be drafting these 2nd-round guys who have no upside on teams or these handcuffs that have no real upside right now. Get you a Devin Singletary. I don't have Darrell Henderson Jr. listed on here, but Darrell Henderson Jr. is another name similar to a Devin Singletary, similar to a Tony Pollard, where you're going to get him as a backup to Todd Gurley, who has looked good. They're saying Todd Gurley looked good and healthy, but one game if that knee inflames and he's out for a month, right? So Darrell Henderson Jr. is also a guy, but he's been getting drafted all too much, so he's not much of value in my opinion. If we just pull up Darrell Henderson, I don't have him listed on this right now, but I'm just thinking just to kind of aware everybody of the rookies. So we have Darrell Henderson Jr. Yeah, you can see right here, Henderson Jr., he was already getting drafted in like the 6th round to start off the fantasy season. Now he's getting drafted in the 8th, but that's just because a lot of hype has been coming out with 1, Todd Gurley looking healthy, and number 2, Malcolm Brown, the current backup for the Rams, kind of playing well in camp and in the preseason and holding his RB2 job right now. So Henderson Jr., if anything, I think is not a value. That's why I didn't list him. We got a couple more names here. The first one I'll point out is going to be Austin Ekeler, and this is obvious right now. He's going to probably not become a value anymore for everybody in here. Let me get off some of these other guys. So Austin Ekeler is now getting drafted, but probably not nearly as high as he should. So he was getting drafted to start the month in August, right around the 7th round. He's still only getting drafted around the 6.5 to 7th round. Now, Melvin Gordon said yesterday, so this is probably, if you're drafting now, you should get in on Austin Ekeler. Melvin Gordon said he's holding out until the regular season. This is exactly what Le'Veon Bell did last year, and then Bell every single week was a does he play this week type of thing. So if you're getting Austin Ekeler in the 6th round as the starting running back and probably splitting a little bit with Justin Jackson, who I think is also a value right now, but a little bit with Justin Jackson, but primarily most of the work, a pass-catching running back in an offense that we saw Melvin Gordon just have a ton of red zone opportunities last year. And after Melvin Gordon went down with an injury, so did Justin Jackson and Ekeler. Yeah, if you're getting him in the 6th to 7th round right now, you're going to be really lucky. Ekeler is probably going to be pushed up to a 5th-round pick very soon as this gets even messier between Melvin Gordon and the Chargers. It already has. Gordon's holding out until the regular season. That is now out there. Make sure you get in on the value before it's all lost. If you were drafting the first week of August, you got him in the 7th round. You got value. Even if Gordon only holds out for a month, you got a running back who's an RB1 for a month, and then he's a very viable RB2 that you can play most weeks, because we saw last year, even on 10 to 8 touches a game, Ekeler was making things happen. Now, if he's going to be the featured back for the foreseeable future and potentially for the whole season, yeah, that's going to be pretty good. So that's the 8th guy. 2 more guys. They're going to be on the kind of upper range right now. First one I want to point out and let's get Ekeler off the screen as well. The first one I want to point out is Marlon Mack. So I've been always pretty down on Marlon Mack, but this is why I'm going to be up. Couple things. I think the sharp decline has happened too sharply, and the news that we just got this week is very favorable for Marlon Mack. Couple of things to point out here that are important. One, Andrew Luck's his quarterback. If Andrew Luck is healthy, and it seems like Dr. Chow says that he's skeptical that he'll be healthy, and the Colts don't even really know by week 1, but Dr. Chow has said that if indeed Andrew Luck is healthy or close to healthy, that they can just shoot him up with some drugs, some adrenaline, whatever it is, he can go out there and play. So it seems like Luck will be healthy. Will he be 100%? I have no idea. It doesn't seem like that, but he'll be out there, which helps this offense. Otherwise, you're going to be in negative game scripts with a Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback or whoever else, Chad Kelly or whoever else they put at the quarterback position. So the reason I like Mack and the reason I think he's currently a value is, look at this. Beginning of August, he was being taken kind of in the mid-third round. That's pretty high in my opinion. So mid-third round for 12-team leagues. Pretty high for Marlon Mack, a guy who has kind of dealt with injuries, has never really been able to stay on the field totally. Like Nyheim Hines last year was getting a lot of the work. But so far in the preseason, Marlon Mack's been taking all the first team reps, whether it's camp or the preseason games. And now he's dropped all the way down to the 4th round. I like that. Why do I like that even more now? Well, because 2 days ago they said Marlon Mack's going to be a 3-down feature back. They said he's going to get all 3 downs of work. The offensive coordinator was saying in an interview that he wants to have him as the goal line back, the 3rd down back, and that's pretty much means you're a 3-down back. That's what that sums up to right there. So if that's the case, and the early indications are Nyheim Hines is going to be on the field just very sparingly, like it's going to be like a primarily 80% plus snap type of game for Marlon Mack, and Andrew Luck is actually healthy, well, you're probably going to be in a lot of positive game scripts where running is actually going to be coming into play, and now you're getting a guy who's going to be a 3-down back, which there's very few of them now left in the NFL, in the 4th round. He's dropped almost a round since the beginning, or since a month from now, he's dropped about a round. So with this recent news, you're probably not going to get him at a better spot. He's probably going to start going back into the middle of the 3rd round if indeed he is going to be a 3-down back. So make sure to hop onto him while the value still exists there in the 4th round. I think if you get your turn in the 4th round and he's still there and some of the other guys that we've already talked about are gone, mainly like a David Montgomery's already gone. I do prefer David Montgomery to Marlon Mack, but if David Montgomery's already gone, then yes, go and take your shot on Marlon Mack. The last guy I'll talk about, and this is really just more so what I believe in terms of where I'll be going, and let's just go to Joe Mixon. So obviously Joe Mixon's not a value in terms of a deep option, but right now I just like the trend of what's happening here because I'm a big Joe Mixon fan, and I like to see this. So earlier on, and we were talking 3 weeks ago, end of July, beginning of August, he was getting drafted as just the first pick in the 2nd round, if not the last pick in the 1st round for a 12-team league. Now he's fallen all the way down to the back of the 2nd round. That's way too low for a guy who last year, I get it. AJ Green is injured. They're already dealing with injuries, and AJ Green's obviously a huge part of the offense to keep you in positive game scripts for a running back, meaning you're either in this only trailing by 1 or you're not getting blown out, so you actually run the ball a lot. But Joe Mixon was on a team last year with Jeff Driscoll starting that was terrible. They were getting blown out left and right, and he was still getting just 6, 7, 8 targets a game, catching 6, 7, 8 passes a game, and still getting his work done on the ground. Joe Mixon was fantastic with Jeff Driscoll as his quarterback, and no AJ Green last year. No Eifert, none of these guys, lots of offensive line injuries. And now, yes, AJ Green won't start the year probably healthy, but everybody else is there. Dalton is still there. I think Joe Mixon, his drop from the top or end of the 1st round, or top of the 2nd, end of the 1st round, to now the mid to end of the 2nd round is just unjustified. This is a guy who is probably going to be a top 10 back this year if he stays healthy, and you're getting him in the mid to late 2nd round. It's just ridiculous to me how that's dropped so quickly. Gio Bernard is not taking away this guy's carries. Travion Williams, who has had a touchdown in the preseason, is not taking them away. Jordan Ellis, who has had a good preseason, is not taking them away. Like, this is going to be primarily a 3-down back role for Joe Mixon with the goal line, with the pass catching abilities we saw last year, and he's mainly dropping, at least in my opinion, because of, 1, the guys around him that people are taking, and 2, because of the AJ Green recent injury, which I think is unwarranted and I think people are overreacting to. So those are the 10 running backs that I think are very valuable right now based on current ADPs and also just based on the news that is happening in the preseason. Preseason does matter. If you don't think so, then what is all these trends that are happening right now and affecting the actual regular season? So let me know what you think down below in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at @SalvageDFS. You can also get, if you like daily fantasy sports, I have a daily fantasy sports and free guides linked down below. So daily fantasy sports course, I have some Patreon stuff. So make sure to support, hit the subscribe button if you got value from this. My name's Sal, like I said. You already know that based on the video, based on my username here. Peace out, gang.